Grace Kelly, an astrological portrait by Ciro Discepolo. Who could doubt astrology when faced with the assumption that Grace Kelly's planetary ruling was Venus? She was certainly one of the most beautiful and captivating women in the world, full of grace and femininity, with a sincerely loving smile, undimmed even by the powerful Sun-Mars conjunction in Scorpio in the first house. I'm certain that behind her fairy tale life, our princess was also governed by a will of steel, and her private life likely also witnessed a great deal of intolerance and aggression, more often endured than endured. Some have portrayed her as a saint, and this seems excessive when I consider the life of immense sacrifices of the average Italian woman, not to mention the Turkish, Tunisian, or Indian woman. Others, however, have attempted to demonize her, attributing to her countless adulteries and extramarital affairs. I believe more likely that her biggest mistake instead was her failure to properly discharge that very strong Mars in the first house. A Mars in the first house must always be neutralized by intense activity, fatigue, stress, or brutal days that leave you asleep, tired and exhausted. Even Gandhi, Pasolini, and Aldo Moro had a Mars in the first house that perhaps they didn't properly discharge, and which was the cause of their violent deaths. Who said that to become a saint you have to wear rough garb? Why the hair shirt and coarse, rough hemp robes? The kingdom of heaven also belongs to a Valentino suit. This is the thesis of Monsignor Pintus, parish priest of San Lorenzo in Lucina in Rome, who, concurrently with the start of Domenica in, launched a petition to beatify Grace Kelly, the former Princess of Monaco who died last year in tragic circumstances, fighting a distorted hagiography that would have saints always be whiny, suffering, and saturnine. The enterprising Roman priest intends to demonstrate that the halo is also fitting for the beautiful, thus raising great hopes in those on Dynasty and Dallas. To the incredulous reporters who ask him how this Grace of ours was a saint, Monsignor Pintus replies, "In her exemplary Christian life." "But there are thousands of women who live like this," someone retorts, and the other, undaunted, replies, "Yes, but not all are tempted in the same way." And the Monsignor seems to want to remind us that worldly life, wealth, and beauty are sources of great temptations, and that not giving in to them is a serious prerequisite for a cause for beatification. It's as if he's saying to so many millions of housewives, "Good luck, don't run off with Robert Redford and immerse yourself in lust if you always have messy hair and varicose veins." It seems, however, that the proposal wasn't well received by the Italsider shift workers, who, while not considering themselves saints, nevertheless believe they're sufficiently penalized to be entitled to some moral comfort in the form of official recognition from the community. On the other hand, the parish priest proposal doesn't seem entirely far-fetched when writer Nanta Salvalaggio also suggests the names of Sofia Loren, Tina Anselmi, and Giulio Andreotti as possible candidates. Furthermore, a former Hollywood actor has become President of the United States of America, and it's hard to see why the unforgettable star of Dial M for Murder and To Catch a Thief can't enter triumphantly into the kingdom of heaven. Meanwhile, Father Pintus continues on his path, despite the Vatican's indifference, and we, who have been robbed of San Gennaro as a first-rate saint, have no choice but to await justice. The occasion of this story allows us to take a look at that fantastic legend that forms the myth of Grace Patricia Kelly Grimaldi. Her story is nothing short of a fairy tale, as her horoscope, full of wonderful aspects, suggests, a fairy tale lacking no ingredient. Our Lady was born very rich in Philadelphia on November 12, 1929, at 5:31 a.m., was naturally beautiful, was overwhelmed at a very young age by a meteoric success, then met the prince who married her and with whom she lived happily ever after. As in all fairy tales, there was also magic, the prediction of her death. The Milanese clairvoyant Silvio Colombo had foreseen everything and documented it. She lived like a princess and died like a princess. No nasty illnesses, no sad old age and suffering. When her miraculous beauty began to fade, an accident which did not disfigure her appearance took her from the affection of her loved ones. The transits for that day are astonishingly clear. Uranus over Mars in the first house. Remember that in Mars in the first house at birth is often a sign of violent death. See Gandhi and Aldo Moro. Pluto and Saturn over Venus in the 12th, and Mars over natal Mars at the same zodiacal degree. Speaking of transits, those of her marriage also seem very eloquent. Jupiter conjunct the midheaven, Neptune conjunct Venus, Pluto sextile Venus and Uranus, in the 9th house, the house of foreigners, square Venus. This once again demonstrates that Uranus transits are not necessarily negative, even in the case of a square, but rather disruptive, in the sense that they completely overturn a situation. The wedding took place on April 19, 1956, after just 3 months of engagement. It, too, was a fairy tale. 1,800 photographers and 800 journalists from all over the world, heads of state and ambassadors from 40 countries. The wedding dress, which would inspire thousands of women for years to come, commissioned by the famous costume designer Helen Rose. Half of Hollywood came to pay her respects, an unprecedented crowd. Her enchanting face captivated men and women alike. Upon her death, Giovanni Arpino wrote, "Grace was beautiful, she was sweet, she was delicate in appearance." But is it true? There's no doubt that she was beautiful with her ultra-dominant Venus, but when it comes to sweetness, she's definitely not there. Grace was a Scorpio with Scorpio ascendant and a Sun-Mars conjunction in the first house. With these attributes, she was certainly a woman with a will of steel and an almost unique personality. Venus in Libra, conjunct the ascendant on the right side, the stronger one, prevented her from being aggressive, so she put all her energy into the things she did, which were primarily about carrying out a role of regal dignity and seriousness. She certainly succeeded, and in this we agree with Father Pintus. If for so many years there was never a scandal surrounding her, if the newspapers never managed to publish a photo of her, with her skirt blowing in the wind or her swimsuit undone, it's a sign that she must have given it her all. But was she happy? She said, "I have nothing to complain about. I'm a very lucky woman." But that doesn't mean she's happy. On the other hand, saving some old guru or a few chosen spirits probably doesn't make anyone happy. Grace, with her sun-moon trine, was undoubtedly a very balanced woman. But the moon in the 5th house and Venus in the 12th house suggest she must have had to say no to her heart more than once. Transits also occasionally appear in the marriages of princes, and precisely in this regard, we'd like to know what happened in the marriage of Grace Kelly and Rainier III between 1974 and 1976, when Uranus transited the subject's Venus and opposed his descendant. The moon in the 5th house often makes one fall in love, but in our case it also refers to Grace Kelly's special attention to her children and children in general. In 1960, thanks to her efforts, Nurseries were established in Monaco for the first time. Other interesting considerations arise from observing her birth chart, especially regarding three sets of elements: a double grand trine between the first, fifth, and ninth houses, the powerful position of Pluto in the ninth sector, and Jupiter in the eighth. The latter demonstrates once again its role as a luck bringer. Let's call a spade, Father Pintus's sociologisms aside. These two stunning double trines contain a large part of her and her story: beauty, serenity, a winning love, fortune from afar. And Pluto in the ninth is precisely this, taken alone or considered, in its interaction with the stars. Then there's Saturn in the second, which cannot fail to inspire the dreams of all those who host it in their charts, like this writer, and who from this moment on begin to think about winning the football pools or discovering an oil well in their own backyard. Her horoscope, like that of everyone else, continues to function even after her death. Newspapers that publish her photo on the cover sell far more copies. Millions of men and women continue to love her, and no pamphlets about her have ever been read. She wasn't attacked even when she went against contemporary history by saying, "A woman's role is first and foremost that of a wife and mother." And don't think that such an attitude arose in her instrumentally after her coronation as a princess. Even in the Hollywood era, she was considered the anti-Marilyn due to her puritanical, conservative, and traditionalist behavior. What is most striking about this horoscope, beyond its victorious destiny, is the study it offers astrologers by virtue of her birth time, declared with great precision, 5:31 a.m. For example, one can explore her life using the primary directions. Let's take the months in which she met and became engaged to Rainier III. We find two extremely significant primary directions: Venus conjunct the Sun and Venus trine Pluto. More than that is impossible. Now there is silence around her, and only distant echoes of her reach us through the actions of those who actively remember her. We don't know if Father Pintus will prevail, but we like to think of this golden piece of celluloid that could sit beside Peter above our heads. If she's made a saint, we will commend ourselves to her in difficult times. Ciro Discepolo, astrological portrait drawn in December 1983.